the agenda for today. The purpose of this particular session is to give you all a better understanding of the actual work specifically going on in Contract and Oversight Manager development, and a chance for us to listen to any feedback that you have. So firstly, we are going to look at the wider vision just very quickly and how Contract and Oversight Manager fits in to the ecosystem, and then we will be looking at some of the features of the new systems and their benefits. And thirdly, we wanted to share with you how we're engaging with the market to guide our approach on all of this. So then we will look at the timeline and activities that we can all start undertaking to prepare for this change. So why are we making these changes? I'm probably preaching to the converted now, but you know, we all know that development in technology, innovation, higher customer expectations, higher increasing risk complexity, and increasing regulatory expectations are radically shifting our global insurance landscape. So to maintain our position as the global insurance leader, we need to build the world's advanced marketplace, and you've heard John Neal wax lyrical about that. So as part of the future at Lloyd's, we need to modernise our systems and processes to better serve customers and drive sustainable growth. So how does DA fit into all of that? Well, the Oversight and Contract Manager are regulatory oversight solutions that not only support those initiatives, such as the middle and back office and the risk exchange, but are also there to modernise and future-proof cover holder, DCA and third-party approvals, onboarding and contract development, more importantly. So it's creating that well-managed ecosystem that we talk about. So in terms of the future at Lloyd's vision, that absolutely fits into building the world's most advanced marketplace. So what does the process look like today? Well, we all know that we're not working as efficiently as we could, especially if you look at the sort of end-to-end customer journey piece. There are lots of manual processes, there are lots of dead-end processes, there's huge amounts of unstructured data, and because of it's unstructured, it's not consistent, and therefore the quality suffers when we're trying to do stuff centrally. So we've got lots of disconnected systems, lack of automation, and limited transparency across the process. So you end up with followers doing stuff that leaders already done, or lots of duplicated processes all around the place. So it's really not efficient. So what will the process look like in the future? We're absolutely going for simplified and more efficient. The processes brought onto the systems, more structured data of better quality. Sorry, is there someone off mute? Could I ask you all to mute yourselves? Thank you. So more structured data, leading to better quality, end-to-end connected systems with Lloyd's, and also your internal systems. So we're absolutely looking at API feeds out to your systems, more automation and less manual entry overall. So due to that ecosystem all being joined up, then we will have a lot more cost savings due to less errors in the whole process. Getting it right first time, making sure that it's re-engineered, that the work is at the front, not all in the feedback loops at the back, which will ultimately enhance that customer experience. So where does Contract and Oversight Manager fit in with the overall ecosystem? I'll just spend a bit of time just explaining that part of the DA life cycle. So, and apologies for those that have been to the other webinars, because you've seen this a million times by now, but this slide shows the DA lifecycle, but it's important to note that we're moving away from the project names. As you've heard, I've been calling this Contract and Oversight Manager, and I'm not using acronyms either. I'm desperately trying not to. So we are, it's important to think about the whole wheel as holistic. and as a connected ecosystem. And today we are specifically looking at the right-hand side of that ecosystem and how Oversight Manager, which is replacing Atlas, and Contract Manager essentially connect the whole ecosystem together. It basically feeds every single part of that wheel, so it's an absolute vital part of the life cycle, as it feeds every part of this ecosystem. And I liken it very much to the beating heart of the ecosystem, because it feeds everything. Oh, hi, Nisha, could you go on mute, please? Thank you, thank you. So the Oversight Manager itself is being creative to allow for a smarter approval and data-first oversight of cover holders. And this is a vital part of the component of the ecosystem, because as we continue to modernise the marketplace and grow our business, we need to improve the way that we undertake regulatory oversight. We need to move away from less intrusive oversight and more risk-based. Having good quality data enables you to mitigate risks in very different ways, and hopefully will stop a lot of the tick box compliance that we've all had to do over the years. So Contract Manager replacing BAR. This will allow for consistent data first registration of contracts. So much more structured data, pick lists, reference data, tagging, making sure that is very consistent and structured. So as part of Contract Manager, we're also developing an elective builder tool. So this is the binding authority builder tool. So it is innovative new means of creating a right first time contract, allowing stakeholders to collaborate on DA contracts together as it's being built and not just at the end. And so as it's being built and changed, the leader and the broker and the cover holder can collaborate on that contract as it's going through. So the Contract Manager represents a really exciting opportunity to build a data-first solution that feeds downstream into all other systems on that ecosystem. So hopefully you can see that the true value of the interconnected DA ecosystem will play in the future of our business. So these essential solutions will enable us to protect our marketplace and continue to better serve our customers. So I also hope you can appreciate the journey to this future state is extremely complex. So the change will be incremental. It's not going to be a big bang. It's incremental and it's also full of risk. So replacing Atlas and BAR, unlike other parts of that DO ecosystem, is extremely risky and complex, because they are already in operation and feed a lot of the current ecosystem. So changing, swapping systems in and out for Atlas and BAR is basically like performing heart surgery. And we are working to ensure that we do this in the smartest possible way and de-risk it as much as possible. So I'll hand over to Dav now to talk about the key features of the system. Thank you.
Thanks, Lindsay. So what is the Delegated Contract Manager? Well, primarily it's made up of two main components. The first of which is the contract registration service, which will be mandatory and is effectively the replacement for BAR, and obviously BAR is mandatory today. The second service is the contract builder. And as Lindsay said, this is going to allow for the market to create that right first time contract. It will be a new service and offered to the market on an elective basis. I think some of the other kind of core features to note are really around integration. And one of the first bits around integration is the way in which we're going to be seamlessly integrating to the Delegated Data Manager, which was previously known as DEA SATs. And that will be feeding the risk data downstream for border road matching purposes. And then I think the second point there is around on integration, how we're going to be integrating the contract manager and indeed the oversight manager as well to lots of other market systems. So with all of this work, we're going to be ensuring that all of this is completely aligned with the future at Lloyd's, and that the data that we're going to be capturing as part of the contract manager is available for other future at Lloyd's initiatives as well to reuse. And that's really important to us, and I think it'll also be really important for you guys as well. I think another important point to note around the contract manager for you all is around how we're going to be delivering it. So it's not going to be a big bang. It is going to be incremental, as Lindsay said. And on that basis, the contract manager itself and specifically the contract builder component is going to be split over 2 releases. So that first release is going to include the core delivery. And what do we mean by that? It's going to enable us to create or to capture all of that contract information in a structured manner, which will then enable us to generate a contract document off the back of that. In the second release, there's going to be some more advanced pieces of functionality. And what we're calling them are effectively the contract builder enhancements. And it's going to be things like the clause libraries, the QA rules, as well as the enabling the market to collaborate and agree the actual contract itself. Move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. And then the other main component is the Delegated Oversight Manager. And really that refers to the replacement for Atlas. And like Atlas is again today, it will be another mandatory service. It will handle the application and compliance activities for cover holders. And some of the key features here really for you all to kind of bear in mind, I think, are around how we're going to have a much more tailored question set, which encourages us to request and collect information once. And then once we have that information is going to be available, made available centrally to other market parties that require that information. Over to you, Lindsay.
Thanks, Dav. So we wanted to kind of touch on the benefits for managing agents. So we kind of find it helpful to break it down into sort of 3 sections. So improve data quality and security. So most questions asked to the cover holders can be very inconsistent. We've basically worked with the market to come up with a sort of standard set of due diligence questions. So time spent on a cover holder approval process will be very much front loaded. Basically everyone's brought into the same question set, so there's no surprises for the cover holder or the broker or yourself. So very consistent, very transparent, and everything has a purpose. So every sort of question that we've tried really hard to make sure that every question is there for a reason, and it's there to either oversight purposes or it's needed for the API for DA SATs, etc., etc. So it is going to be constantly challenged on that basis. The benefits that you guys will have in terms of analysis and decision making, if you think about just the type of because it's structured and consistent and better quality, the type of MI that you're going to be able to get out of all these systems is going to be a different level, and that is absolutely what we want to get to, is that you've got a lot of better data to make better quality decisions and analysis on, because that will enhance every part of your oversight over third parties and ours over you guys as well. So it all kind of it works. If we move to kind of joined up systems, this is where all of that pays dividends, because all those APIs feeds into the other system, make it all worthwhile, because it's only done once and you get the benefit of it downstream. So the the future benefits. As I said, it's really enabling that holy grail of that risk-based oversight. Reduction in the amount of audits, hopefully. We can do stuff desktop. Quicker decisions when you're asking for more permissions, absolutely faster settlement processes, and the ability to link to any risk exchanges that are operating in the future and any claims platforms in the future. So I think I've covered everything for the benefits for the managing agent. So I will hand over to Dav now for you to talk about the market engagement and how we've run that process.
Thanks a lot, Lindsay. So kind of trying to move on to the actual development itself and how we're involved in the market. So I think we have completely recognised and acknowledged that the market involvement and having you guys involved is absolutely key and fundamental to helping this project progress. And it's definitely identified as one of the areas on the previous project that could have been improved. So this has been our guiding approach, and we're dedicated to partnering with the market and to leverage your expertise and your knowledge to inform our delivery. We're working closely with the associations, LIBA and LMA, and looking to leverage the collective expertise of our market panel, really to advise on our design, testing, communications and engagement approaches across the different solutions that we're putting in play. And really just touching one of those aspects, because I'll come onto the panel on the next slide in a bit more detail, but on the testing itself. So at the beginning of August, we're going to be kicking off our informal MAT process with our panel, where they're going to be getting an early sight and the opportunity to provide us with some feedback on some of the development that we've already been doing. So I think, as you can see from this slide, there are a lot of groups. So groups to do with governance and also engagement groups that we're working with. We're anticipating that these groups are going to inform, challenge and drive our approach. We're looking to leverage these groups, the market knowledge on them, and the industry expertise, and ultimately align under the future Lloyd steerco, which is going to help ensure that the vision itself across DA and multiple other future Lloyd's initiatives is all nice and cohesive. Next slide, please. Thank you. So now that we've talked to you about the bigger picture itself, we want to kind of talk a bit more about the actual work itself on the development and how the market is going to be working with us in partnership on that. So I did touch on that previous slide about some of the activities that we're doing with the market panel, but I want to dive into a bit more detail here. So the market panel itself is core and it's fundamental to our approach. For the last 4 months, we've been working with about 30 different representatives from brokers and managing agents. And we've looked to leverage their technical expertise as end users to advise on the development of the system. Every 3 weeks, we share wireframes with them. We demo the latest developments and we solicit their feedback on a whole bunch of other issues or questions that we may have for them. This feedback itself on the system is a vital component in the process, and it makes its way into our product backlog. And then what we effectively do is we prioritize the delivery of that along with our product owners. So that was the kind of first major component that's helping us on the development side. I think the second one is really around, and I touched on the informal testing. Well, to complement informal testing, which is going to helpfully de-risk our delivery and ensure a better quality product. We've also got the formal market testing period. So we are working on designing and planning a formal market acceptance testing program, which will take place towards the end of each of the various different releases with the market. It's an important stage in the development of the solution. It will enable us to identify any last-minute technical issues, and also it'll be an important governance point to enable us to sign off that solution and effectively move forward and go live. Move on to the next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thanks. I think there's a bit of a lag. Thank you. So we've talked about how we're working in the market, and I think what we want to do now is just kind of tell you when this is all happening. So driven by market feedback, we're decoupling the technology delivery and the market adoption. The rationale for this is pretty simple. So we were looking to do this as it was the preferred option, I think, with the market, due to a busy renewal period at in Q4, and also some of the developments that were happening around COVID. So what that means is in November we will have our first technology delivery. However, it's not until March when we would actually look to go live with our first release. I touched on this earlier, that first release. The scope of it is going to include the Delegated Contract Manager, and on that, it's specifically the contract registration as well as the contract builder. And on the contract builder, it will be that core delivery that we're talking about. So by going live in March, it will enable us to deliver improvements based on market feedback, which we can incorporate as part of those later releases. Release 2 will take place in the second half of the year. We'll give you more detailed timelines as we move forward through this year, and our planning becomes more mature on that release. The scope of it will cover those enhancements to the contract builder functionality, as well as the Delegated Oversight Manager as well. Now, of course, alongside of these technology deliveries, we know that there's a whole bunch of activities that you will all need to do to ensure that you're ready for the system. So whether we call them business readiness activities or actual onboarding activities. If you could just jump back a slide, please. So some of those activities themselves are highlighted here on the actual timeline. So we've got MUAs, so market user agreements, which are going to be produced around December, January time for you all to review and sign. There'll be training sessions which will be made available in January, and so we'll be providing you with whether it be webinars and actual kind of physical documentation as well. The MAT, that formal MAT process will kick off in January as well, and then there'll be a whole bunch of other onboarding activities that we'll be asking you to do, and which leads us nicely onto that next slide, where we'll touch on those in a bit more detail. So, you know, what is it that you need to do to prepare for that change? So we've tried to segment these into 3 key areas, so pre-go live, go live, and post-go live, because there will be a continuous process, I think, and continuous improvement even once we have gone live, and we just want to emphasize that. So pre-go live, I mean, a lot of you have done this stuff before with other market initiatives, especially with Brexit, for example. So some of this is probably really familiar to you all, but there will be a number of activities that we'll ask you to undertake. So firstly, we want you to participate in events such as these, and there'll be others as well that we're planning, which will provide you with more information. We want you to attend workshops. We want you to work with senior leaders to build change readiness and operational plans. There'll be requests for you to clean up some of the data in some of the legacy systems, as well as attend the training sessions as well. So we recognise that that's a lot, and just so that you're aware, last week in the DA Vision webinars, we asked the senior market executives to appoint a dedicated change lead in their companies to act as a point person to coordinate efforts internally for each firm. Over the next few months, we'll be working closely with the nominated change leads to cascade change activities through their companies. So by go live, we're hoping that you will have confirmed your user access, you'll have established new ways of working, you'll have executed your operational plans, and you'll updated your internal processes, so that effectively once we're live, you're up and running, and you can then begin that improvement process. So post go live, you can start to optimize those operating models, decommission any of your legacy processes. You can provide us with feedback on how to improve the service, and obviously keep in contact with your delegated authority team representatives. Okay, Lindsay.
Thank you, Dev. So immediate next steps. So we'd ask you to review this content with your colleagues, market partners. Reach out to your associations if you want to sort of give them any feedback. If you don't want to give it directly, obviously we'd love to have it directly. If you need to visit the website, there's going to be a lot more information. There's going to be newsletters, and I think we promised the execs in the webinars last week that we would be iterating kind of toolkits, a bit like we did with Brexit, to show what's upcoming and what's changing as we go down, because I think it's going to be a sort of cascading a lot of information that's coming down the pipeline. So I think